Welcome back to another episode of the Supply Chaney podcast. This is going to be an edition that is going to be live. And we've got our microphones here. We're hanging out here this is the Cowboys training facility.
Cowboys formation.
Okay, so we got our Cowboys coffee and everything going on. So today is actually a really special opportunity because we've got a trip planned to Africa that we're going to talk about here. And Azuka is the inspiration behind this thing. And so before we take off, actually 1 month from today, the day we're recording, I wanted to make sure that I capture your story, understand kind of your background and what it is you're trying to accomplish in Africa and in your career so that I can be ready for one while I'm walking the streets of Lagos with you. And so that I can have this context. But in the spirit of this whole campaign, I want to share this story with everybody and bring everybody along for the ride. So that's the setup there. Azuka, can you help all of us understand who you are and kind of what you're all about?
Thanks, Nathan. And thanks for the opportunity to be on your podcast. Who am I? I'm
It's an easy question.
Yeah. Only when you're very complex like me, then it's not so easy, right?
Okay.
So I'm a mother, I'm a lady, I'm a supply chain professional, and I tend to describe myself as a supply chain professional first before I remember I am all the things.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why. Everything in life is about the supply chain, right? If you have to eat, right? Say you want to eat avocados, right? You have to buy the avocados. So you plan to eat avocados, you have to go source the avocados. When you buy the avocados, you have to put them in the fridge, right? You make sure that they are well kept, right? And then when you're cutting them, you have to be delicate, and you have to discard them properly. So that's a whole supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Just running a kitchen in itself is that. And so that's why I describe myself as a supply chain professional a lot of times.
Yeah.
But I'm also a mom of 4 lovely kids across all age ranges, from a toddler to a teenager. Interestingly, I grew up in Africa, so I'm very culturally oriented, and I'm married. And then I have lived in different parts of the world, Africa, Europe, and now the United States. And then also I've worked both in the multinationals like Kimberly-Clark, Mondelez, and in the private sector.
Okay. That's it. Yeah. Just a reasonably well-rounded person. And what I can appreciate is what you just said about the avocado supply chain is I think if you're like a diehard supply chain fan, everything is supply chains. And you can't walk into a room without thinking about all the logistics and transportation and manufacturing that went into making that particular room or that cup of coffee or whatever it is happen. So let's kind of back up a little bit further into your origin story, what it was like growing up, where you grew up, and did one day you dream of being a supply chain professional? Let's talk through that, the origin story for you.
Okay, so I come from Africa, and it's a joke, right? But it's real. In every African family in my generation, you're either a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an engineer. A pharmacist comes a second close, but this 4.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to be a lawyer, but my mom wanted me to be a doctor. Yeah. So I got into school, University of Ibadan, one of the prestigious schools of the country. And I remember saying to my brother, I don't want to read medicine, but there was no trade-off in those days. So I went in to read medicine, settled for biochemistry, pre-med, and I kept trying for law. And by the 3rd year, I had gotten the law admission. But hey, it was 3rd year biochemistry. I had gotten my mom to agree that I should finish the biochemistry if I don't want to read medicine. So I went on to read biochemistry. After that, I was to serve in national service, something that happens in the country. You have to give back 1 year, some sort of internship, but to the country. And I served in a lab. And I think it was Glaxo Wellcome, mixing the formulations for drugs. And I said, no way, never again.
Yeah.
So I moved on to Pfizer for like a year and worked in sales. Moved on to Mondelez, started as sales, and I was so good with numbers that at one point, they wanted somebody to run commercial operations. And at a certain point, I think Kraft Foods bought over Cadbury. At that point in time, it was still Cadbury. Kraft Foods bought into them. And it became necessary to separate the sales function from the supply chain function, from the operations function for
Okay.
accountability, and all of that. So the people who bring in the orders and the people who deliver the orders. And that's how I moved into supply chain. Somebody sat somewhere, I think it was my commercial director, and said, she's really good with numbers. She should go and start operations. And somebody else said, then who would do sales who would be in sales? And so there was a handshake and I was moved to supply chain. And I spent the hardest year learning the acronyms. Oh
Mhm.
my God. S&OP, all the KPIs, CFR and the rest. It was 1 year of learning those words. But then I'm here, so I survived. But it was the best 1 year of my life. It was just a natural thing for me to be in the supply chain.
It is funny because I do talk to a lot of people and I listen to their story of how they get into the industry and the profession, and a great majority of them are not like me who have a degree in logistics and supply chain.
No.
They have a degree in some other field and have found themselves there. So you talked a little bit about, and is it Nigeria that is where you grew up, the country?
Yes.
Okay. So growing up there, where you kind of have painted this picture that the expectation is you're a lawyer, engineer, doctor, or such and so. How about as you went to school, you went to work, was the dream to always like stay living there locally with your family, or did you have aspirations of seeing the world and being a global citizen?
Interesting story. The dream was to live in Nigeria, but see the world and be a global citizen. And that's why a lot of us went into the multinationals, because that
Okay.
actually gave you the opportunity to do that. So I have worked in the whole of Africa. Interestingly, I have also spent some time in Europe and then Dubai. So that really gave one the opportunity to see the world. But I guess that at the beginning, that's not really what you're thinking about. What you're thinking about is do your job so well that
Yeah.
you grow in the but that's additional opportunity to the world came as part of the role. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
And just to add something,
Yeah.
the biggest education actually comes from seeing the world.
Yes.
So for me, running an ERP implementation project, sitting in Dubai, sitting in Vietnam, Bratislava, taught me more about the company and the different nuances than sitting in my market. So that you cannot underestimate.
That makes a lot of sense. So you've kind of gone briefly through your personal story. I'm kind of curious, like, what is childhood like? We've had some discussions of what it's like to grow up there, and I'm looking forward to being there to see this. But what is it like growing up in that area?
And that's a good question. So a lot of things we take for granted.
Yes.
It's not there. But again, at that point, we didn't know there was any different anywhere. So for instance, you'd be watching TV and the power will go off. You're not surprised. Yeah, they took lights. It's matter of fact.
Yes.
And then when they bring back the light, everybody shouts, up NEPA. NEPA is the national power, electric power.
Oh, really?
Like they did something really positive to bring back the power.
Oh my gosh.
Now, where I live in North Texas,
Yes.
last week the power went out because there were very strong winds.
Yes.
And the group chat, the community group chat went agog. Did you lose power? Did you lose power?
Yes.
It's not normal to lose power here.
Right.
But it's normal to lose power back home. Nobody will blink when you lose power. You just stop what you're doing and do something else and wait for the power.
Yes. Yeah.
That was growing up. However, in the past a few years, we have backup power like generating sets, we have solar, we have inverters. So things are changing a lot. So that gap is shifting. And technology is also making sure that that gap shifts even more. And, with young people, with the mobile phones, they said 3 in every 5 Africans are between the ages of 19 and 25. So we have a very young population.
Right.
And then with technology, development is coming in faster because young people want to see the world. They want to bring the world home. They want the same standards everywhere. So it's night and day. So infrastructure it used to be a challenge growing up. The other thing was, how do you say it? The culture. We're very big on culture. So the African culture, it just meant, you had to do what your parents said you should do. So you go through school, you go through a certain path, But these days, things are changing. You finish school and you become a social media influencer. In my time, your parents will kill you. Literally. They'll send you out of the house and tell you to go feed yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of difference. Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing up just the simple power, electricity, infrastructure, and the parallel I think that we can draw if we put our supply chain hats on is how that really basically the root word of all that is being resilient and being able to move and adjust as the situation does. And I think that that's a thing that we talked like from COVID days to now, that supply chains need to be resilient. Whenever one small thing changes somewhere, you need to be able to react. And we were talking like not just with the TV and the power turning off and you go clean the floors for a while and then you come back, but in a factory setting or in a supply chain, you also, there's a big process in that kind of environment to get all of the tools back online and get the factory running again. And that is an example of resilience and being able to bounce back, which in the US and maybe more advanced supply chains, we don't know how to deal with disruptions. But I think that's a little bit different there in Africa.
So if you were to, if if resilience was a country or a continent, it would be Africa, right?
Okay.
If resilience was a continent, it would be
Yeah.
Africa.
Okay.
So, and let's talk about I mean, in Mondelez, I was a CSNL director. So customer service and logistics director. So that's supply
Okay.
chain director, everything outside of core manufacturing, right? And so an example I remember, at one point in time, we had a massive generating set, right? To backup set. And most times you run on the generating set because as factories don't want to run on the national grid.
Okay.
So you provide your own generating set. And of course, also compressed natural gas too, so you have backup. But at one point in time, the national grid was really down. The generating set was also down. So we could not we could not use the national grid as backup.
Yeah.
There was a problem in something about the dam water level being too low, and it couldn't generate enough power and all of that.
Yeah.
And we're at an industrial area, and that was still suffering, so it was really bad. And then the generating set had an issue, and so we're, I think, 7 senior managers in all of supply chain, including manufacturing, and we took turns round the clock manning the power plants because we couldn't stop the line.
Yeah.
So somebody would take the day shift, another person would take the night shift, another person would take the shift. Yes, the engineers were there, but we couldn't allow anybody go to sleep. We couldn't, at the time when they should be on duty.
Yeah.
So you had a senior manager standing and overlooking everything being done, and if there's an issue, quickly deciding what next. That's the kind of resilience you see. I look at some operations here and I see the plant just runs. I go to a lot of plant visits here.
Yeah.
That's my happy place. The plant is running. Nobody's there. And I just think about, the line just stops now. What happens?
Yeah.
There'll be chaos because it's meant to run normally.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The speed with which we restart the plants when there is shutdown in Nigeria should be studied. Everybody's hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, you improvise. And that's interesting. I was building a plant in Ikorodu, Lagos at one point for Kimberly-Clark when I was supply chain director. And the things will come into the port. The machines will come into the port. And let's say we had planned to clear in 6 weeks. Plan to clear in 6 weeks. I'm not joking. We're clearing in 6 weeks. It's not arriving in 6 weeks. We're clearing in 6 weeks. And sometimes it gets to 3 months. And you have to plan in such a way that you do not entirely impact the entire project.
Right.
So you have to, because again, the people who were building the factory came from different parts of the world. So you have to keep them busy.
Yeah.
With other things to make sure that the project does not really go way out of,
Right.
So that's the kind of thing, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was joking, one of the business owners in Nigeria, he said to me that, what am I talking about? That here, when your driver tells you they're on the road, they're 45 minutes away, you should build another 3 hours in.
Yeah.
Because 45 minutes away could really be 45 minutes away, but then might have a police check stop, might have a tire bust, and there's no AA to come pull it up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
A few companies now, but at that time it was, or might get to a border and not be allowed to pass through. There was one time in my career where the ships will refuse to come into Nigeria. We'll go to Togo and we'll have to transload and put in trucks to bring the product into Nigeria. These things happen, but we're so resilient that we have found a way around it. It doesn't stop us.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I feel very When I talk to some of the companies here, I'm like, these guys are too laid back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it mean nothing goes wrong? And it's kind of boring.
Yeah, right. Well,
Yeah.
when I think that a lot of supply chain people consider themselves to be firefighters or
Yeah.
people who are always putting out fires and always solving problems. But I think that that is a relative concept, as you're saying, in areas where have very well manicured supply chains that operate on time. The trains always arrive on time. The planes leave on time. Those sort of things. There's a fire. There is fires and challenges there. And then there's places where the trains are never on time and the planes are never on time. But that is just a fact of life and how it goes there. I think part of this mission of going to explore supply chains in Africa, part of this is to see what are those things that can be done to help advance and move and make it so that the supply chains there can run more efficiently, that there's less waste, that there's less reactions to problems, and instead things are just run a little smoothly. How do you see that happen? Have you seen it occur during your career, and kind of are you optimistic about the outlook?
Have I seen it occur in my career? Yes.
Okay.
So coming from the firefighting side of supply chain to like an SNOP process that there's a lot of firefighting, to an IBP process that you really need to do a lot of more early warning systems, more, looking far ahead and all of that. That was the first shocker for me. I realized that if you put structures in place, you know, and if everybody has a common lens from every department, it makes a difference. So that's when I started advocating for once commercial is planning, commercial is sales and marketing, procurement needs to be in the room. Quality needs to be in the room. You know, things like that. The plant manager needs to be in the room. So that first strategy session has to have key stakeholders in the room. So that's the first, I realized that there's a major change. We used to get off on firefighting. We used to have this thing where the MD will call all the managers, the very senior team leads to the room, to the boardroom and say, so what is happening? We cannot shut down the plant, and then the wise men in the room will sit at different tables and make predictions. I used to be the only woman in the room then. I used to be one of the few women in supply chain in the organization. And I'll sit the wise men, telling the MDs also. And in my mind, I'm like, why are you lying? Because that promise you just made,
Oh, yeah.
those goods are not going to come out of the pot in that time. You've not even gone to the root cause of the problem. You don't even know the root cause of the problem yet.
Yeah.
And so I'll go out of the room, and they usually didn't ask me, they will ask the wise men. And when we go out of the room, the wise men will go, so Azuka, what do you think? And I'm like, are you guys joking?
Mm-hmm.
You just went there and answered questions. Why are you asking me what I think now? And they go, oh, we have to keep him happy. Let's go and solve the real problem now. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
A big part of that solution is education.
Okay.
The number of people who dabbled into the supply chain, as opposed to those who really studied supply chain education, logistics, operations, and all of that, the gap is wide. Now, that gap could be reduced if there's supply chain education. But a lot of the education we get for the big organizations that they have the learning management systems. So I had the Accenture University with Mondelez, and I had the Kimberly-Clark Learning, Academy. Practical knowledge, Now we should have AI kind of learning where it's practical learning right on the spot that you can adapt from the LMS to help you in your operations.
Yeah.
That's the big gap today, and that's where the opportunity is, to get people trained quickly. That's one. And then secondly, it's happening everywhere, not just in Africa. The legacy people in supply chain, are sitting here and they're about to go off, right? Retire, they've paid their dues 20, 30 years, but we don't have a lot of new people coming in.
Okay.
We have to socialize the supply chain. People can't keep dabbling into it.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter is reading supply chain and data analytics, and I'm happy because I wish more young people would come into the supply chain because they will come in with new ideas, new ways of doing things, new approaches, innovation. So that's the second part. Get more people in the supply chain, socialize it. And that's why I really like what you do. Make it easy. In my days as a supply chain manager, my early days, the planners used to wear jackets. Everybody in the business will wear pants and a shirt. The planners will wear jackets.
Yeah.
You know, the wise men, like they're cooking something in it, then nobody knows what's going on. You know, that thing still stays with me. Demystify it. It's supply chain is life. It's every day. Let's not make it too complicated so that people can come into the supply chain. Let's get more people in and give them certifications that are practical, that, you know, will help them convert the learning into the everyday work. You know, so that's the those are the two big opportunities, right? Build knowledge in existing supply chain personnel, but knowledge that is practical, industry based, and get new people in and don't make it too complex so that they can also come in. I don't know if you're aware that a lot of supply chain professionals used to be mathematicians, people who read physics, industrial engineers. It shouldn't be, because yes, I know that there's a lot of mathematical knowledge needed for problem solving.
Right.
But there's also a lot of common sense, practical things, design thinking that comes from just understanding the problem and looking for practical solutions.
Because at its root, the logistics at its root is logic. So it is not rocket science. It's pretty A, B, C, very orderly. There's usually logic and common sense involved. But here that they don't teach common sense anymore. They didn't teach it when I was in school either. But so I'm curious. You know, you've talked a little bit about education and work development and upskilling, bridging the gap between the legacy supply chain leaders and the new and young generation in. I really like networking. I really like connecting with people in the industry in Africa of supply chain. What associations or opportunities exist for all the supply chain professionals? We have multiple associations here in the US, plenty of options, but what does that situation look like in Africa?
That's a very interesting question. I belong to a group of 309 supply chain professionals.
Okay, that's a very exact number.
Because I follow the number every day.
Okay.
309 supply chain professionals. If you look for a company in Nigeria and you don't know where to find it, check on that group. A representative from that company is there. But we don't have an association yet.
Okay.
But that group solves problems. You want something done, you put it on that group. You want an information, you put it on that group. And formed by a group of great guys, supply chain professionals, industry experts, very experienced guys. And so what I'm saying is that there are informal groups like this one that are very effective, but they're not a lot of formal groups. So I know a couple. I know there's the SAPICS in South Africa. I know that there is an Africa Resource Center in Nigeria, and a couple of I know that there's a university multi-mix academy who has its members or its alumni, a very strong alumni base. You know, so those are the ones I really am aware of, and a couple of one or two that the younger generation is bringing up here and there. But yes, it's an opportunity for a very, very for a strong group, you know, to come together. You know, that's because a lot of people want to be members of ASCM or want to be members of ISM, you know, and what are they thinking? They're thinking, oh, there's structure and it's together, you know.
Right.
But then we should have local chapters then, shouldn't we? You know, those are the things I see. So yeah, there's that opportunity. Like, yeah.
Okay. So there's opportunity for education and development. There's opportunity for associations and being able to bring professionals together to further the profession. What other opportunities are there? Like maybe even just at the infrastructure level, what other kind of opportunities are there in the supply chain ecosystem?
Okay. So when we talk about opportunities for education and development, there are a lot of supply chain courses.
Okay.
Yeah, they're quite a number, not a lot. They're quite a number of supply chain courses that are easily accessible. The question is industry-based, you know, practical. That's what is missing, you know. And I'll give you an example. I don't know if you're familiar with VK academic courses.
A little bit.
A little bit. If you look at those courses, you can literally, if you take, I was speaking to a lawyer who is a project manager, right? And I said, we were on a project together, and I said, I think you should take his supply chain course. And she was, why? Like, why? I said, you're so good on the field, right? We're having a project in Northern Nigeria. You're so good on the field. But I want you to have some supply chain knowledge and concepts.
Yeah.
And she was a bit how to say it. She was she had doubts,
Okay.
right? She went through the program, the VK Academy Certified Supply Chain Leader program,
Uh-huh.
and then she wrote me this note. That now she understands why she needed to go through this course. That a lot of things that were not clear to her are now clear, and she can actually solve problems and understand how the world works in different areas. That's my point. Even supply chain managers who are doing the daily work do not really understand how it ties from what they're doing to a
Mhm.
strategic level, how organizations are managed. And that brings me to your next question. What other opportunities are there? This is my passion. In developed markets, right? Small businesses run the economy. They drive the economy, right? And because the small businesses are really strong.
Okay.
So what you call small businesses in Texas, I'm shocked. Who's a $100 million business, a small business?
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
know? And I go into the $100 million business in Texas, and they're still struggling with their data or their systems or their processes, and I'm confused because a $100 million business back home is a very big business.
Yeah.
You know, but the opportunity is we have professionals in the industry, but small businesses are struggling. They're struggling.
Mhm.
They do not understand their operations. You know, they're not investor ready because when investors come and look at the business, they're not ready to fund them. And what's the problem? Operational knowledge, reducing waste, ensuring planning better, right? Taking out the areas of losses,
Mhm.
the costs overrun and things like that. But these are all supply chain issues. These are operations.
Yeah.
Go to market, how they're taking their goods to the market and how they're sourcing. Procurement.
Yeah.
It's big.
Mhm.
But when investors want to give money, they also make consultants for sustainability available to these businesses. Why are they not making supply chain consultants available to this business?
Okay.
Because that's what the business actually needs.
Yeah.
The business owner understands the business of running his business. The problem is the operations. That's a whole, it's a box.
Yeah.
Especially in Africa, infrastructure is still a challenge. If we could take away the operational risk and issues from small businesses and get experts to deal with it and, empower the business owners with the knowledge they need, the businesses would do better. So half of the small businesses in the US drive, I think, about 80% of the economy.
I think so. Yeah.
But in Africa, it's about 50% of the GDP. And then we have more small businesses. Why? Because the quality, the value, the operations, there's a lot of waste in the process.
Okay.
And then we have the experts, the professionals sitting in the multinationals.
Uh-huh.
They know what to do. They understand it. Like I said, I have a platform of 309 people. I need these 309 people to go look at small businesses and offer them solutions,
Yeah.
which would take them 10 or 15 or 20 minutes to think about because
Right.
that's what they do every day for big businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I'm thinking about it. That's a big area.
Yeah. That seems like one, a very worthy and high impact initiative. But if I think about it here in America, I think, okay, you take all these kind of higher level leaders of companies and you say, okay, go. Oh, you have a stressful job running this stressful supply chain in the US or globally. We want you to take your time and donate some to help smaller companies. I think that would be a big ask here in the US. How might you be able to facilitate that and get those experts to contribute their time and expertise? Do you kind of have a plan or an idea of how to accomplish that?
Yes. So we have a plan, baby steps. So
Uh-huh.
what's our plan? Our first plan is we have a plan called Move for Africa. What's Move for Africa? Partnering with two organizations, Piazza. Piazza is a fintech company indigenous to Nigeria, but across West Africa, I think Canada now, and some other countries. And VK Academy, who is Canada-based, but also based in Belgium, I think,
Mhm.
operating in Belgium. And so Piazza has brought some rewards and VK has brought some courses. And what are we saying? We're saying, you know what? Let's all come together and even access our expertise or assess ourselves. The small business owners will assess their businesses. Professionals, we take an assessment as well to see the kind of problems businesses have, right? And so after that, and just taking part in that program, you get a free certification, And that's of the certification is like a supply chain framework and strategy. So at least the experts who are really good will just go back and refresh some of the little things that small businesses want. The small businesses get a small understanding of, these are the things we should be looking at. There's a strategy to this things, So out of that, we build a community. Nathan, you will not believe that the issues that the small businesses face as 5, 10-minute, 15-minute problems. It's just an understanding of how to approach the problems. Planning is an issue today. When it's night and day when I see how planning works here and how planning works back home.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of Excel planning still, and even with that, there's still a lot going on. So I have a friend who's a supply chain director for a multinational. His wife has a small business. And so, I mean, conversation with him, he goes, well, I had to start giving my time to my wife's business. When I see some of the things that happens, I'm like, but this is what I do, my eyes closed, and of course, you know how relationships are. So when he tells his wife, do this, she goes, no. And he has to sit down to her and explain, you have to plan like this.
Yeah.
There's a cost to doing this and that you're not looking at.
Yeah.
You have to look at the entire picture end to end, from this part to this part. We're still very far from the whole AI thing. And that's what I'm very careful about. If we're going to put AI, let's get the processes and the data right. It's almost a pain point for me. If you put AI into a broken process, you're accelerating the broken process.
Sure, yeah, garbage in, garbage out philosophy, right? Well, I'm really excited. I appreciate you putting me in your suitcase for your trip back to Nigeria. Hopefully, maybe possibly you'll be able to join also in South Africa. But it's interesting to hear that for you, it's not easy to get a visa to South Africa.
So I was to go for the SAPIX conference this year.
Uh-huh.
Granted, I think I started applying about 6 weeks to the time and had all my documentation, Jenny Fromm and her team gave me all the documentation and I went, presented, and no visa.
Yeah.
But that's not a surprise. It's usually quite difficult to get a South African visa. There are a lot of checks and processes that we have to go through to get that visa. However, I'm still trying. I really would love to be in South Africa. I love Joburg and Cape Town. But I know why I'm going back home anyway. So I'm really looking forward to going to Nigeria, going to see family. Then, of course, going to, some business interests and then going to amass interest and support for Move for Africa. I want to talk, I have some banks I need to talk to about getting operational support for the SMEs that they're funding so that they will get their return on investment back.
I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know why I'm going. Why are you going? Why are you in my suitcase?
Well, I'm on a mission. I think we talked earlier. You mentioned that sea exploration and experiencing different cultures and seeing different things is actually like the best form of education,
Yes,
right? And
absolutely.
getting intellect. And so part of it is just the curiosity of seeing a new place. But similar to you, I see everything through a lens of supply chain and wanting to advance the practice and the profession. And so I want to go see for my own eyes what the supply chain ecosystem is like there on the ground. You can go to any conference today and you'll see Gartner's statistics on the screen saying that Africa as a continent is poised to be the next greatest
Absolutely.
economic power in the world. And so I think that I'm in this interesting position to be able to take a quick snapshot of what it looks like today, try to go see it for myself, document it, talk to some people, maybe see if there's anything at all that I can contribute into that conversation just from my little speck of sand, here in the industry. And then I want to be able to just participate in the conversation, do what I can to help and share it and then observe it as it goes forward. I still have a good number of years ahead of me in this career that I have. So I want to try to see if I can see something in transition. And I think that, as you've said, supply chain is a really important part of what makes economies tick. And so I think this is an interesting opportunity for the travel, the exploration of it. It is going to be called the African supply chain safari on purpose. So it's just I don't know exactly. I have a fuzzy idea, but I think it will come into focus more as we're there, as we're having conversations, as we're seeing things. I'm hoping to have those light bulb moments of where there's some real impact. possible?
To be honest, I mean, I've attended one or two conferences with you. I've attended your community events, Warehousing After Dark, and I see that there's a lot of potential, right? Both ways. One of my areas of focus is to be some sort of ambassador, right? To ensure that businesses here, can do business in Africa comfortably,
Uh-huh.
the businesses in the supply chain, right?
Yes.
And businesses in Africa can scale here as well comfortably,
Okay.
So I see a lot of opportunity looking at your network and all of that. First and foremost, there's a lot of innovation. I mean, we went to the last warehouse. Oh my God, the innovation was out of this world. Like,
Right.
I was just, playing around and all of that. So I think that you having worked with a lot of these guys who are your partners or who are in your programs, you will be able to see what are the quick wins or low-hanging fruits
You're right.
that technology can quickly bring to the fore
Mhm.
and sort out. I also think that you seeing the resilience on our part
Yeah.
and the adaptations, for want of a better word, that has been built in, you can also give ideas to these guys, the warehouse experts, the logistics experts, about what next they should be thinking about because, hey, they can't lose out of the African market.
Uh-huh.
That's where to be. So they should be thinking about solutions that will also match. So the synergy is those ways. I think there's quite a lot for you to look at there. Then more importantly, I think that also the idea of socializing the supply chain is novel.
Mhm.
I mean, a couple of people have been doing it, supply chain now. There's the lady, there's quite a number of people, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that though, that bringing it home and helping businesses see, hey, it's important to see what I'm doing as well. Especially in the supply chain. I mean, we didn't used to talk about supply chain before. It was never a conversation. Now, on Bloomberg, every news item, somebody has to say supply chain. I bet to my daughter
Yeah.
that before this finishes, supply chain will happen. And she loses every time. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity. And of course, there's the opportunity to meet people, the network thing you talked about,
Yeah.
even find out for yourself, where and what and how, and then, of course, you get to eat some good African food.
I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to
Hot,
that.
you
Yeah, yeah.
see?
That's good. That's how I like it. Well, hey, this was great. I think we were able to get down a couple of foundational concepts of just what it's like to be a supply chain professional in Africa today. And so I think we've documented this, and I'm looking forward to the next step of being there on the ground and seeing it in person with you.
Yes, looking forward to that too. You will have fun. I totally promise you.
Yeah.
And some aha moments, and a lot of stories to come back with, a lot of stories of resilience, innovation,
Yeah.
and entrepreneurship.
Right.
Africans are very entrepreneurial.
Okay. Yeah.
The ideas flow and problem solvers. So you have a
Okay.
lot to keep you.
All right. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, let's
All right.
go.
All right. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.